Hey there, welcome to the channel. If you're new, my name is Megan Rogers. I'm an author, and we're gonna look at how to receive feedback as a writer. But there are so many ways that being a writer has made me a better person and has helped me in real life. And learning to receive feedback is one of them. So we're going to break this video down into two parts. We're going to look at before the book is published, and we're going to look at after the book is published. And even if you don't have a published book right now, I'm going to imagine if you're writing, if you're a writer, that's probably a goal of yours, or to be published in some capacity. So let's go ahead and get into things. First, when it comes to receiving feedback before your book is published, to me there are two phases to this. First, there is the early reader phase. Now, this is a phase that you as the writer completely control. You get to pick who gives you feedback. You get to decide who to give your book to. And I'm going to suggest that you be incredibly selective about who you give your book to for feedback. I am incredibly selective, and it has served me incredibly well. Here's what I look for, and I do have notes here that I'm going to read from because I don't want to miss anything. So I have 3 core criteria for people I'm going to ask for feedback from. The first is it's somebody who knows and understands my goals and can give me the feedback that will help me achieve them. So it's not somebody who's going to sit down and tell me what the book should be. Like, I can come to my early readers and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to create. This is the effect I'm trying to have. And they're going to help me get there. They're going to help me reach my goals, not theirs. These are people who like what I like / what I'm trying to create. When I'm asking for feedback from people, it's people that I know very well. So it's people who I know what their taste in TV and movies and books and entertainment in general is. Like, I know what they like, and I know we like the same things. So I know if I give them a book, like, ideally, like, this is somebody who I know is my reader. This is somebody who that if they had just picked this book up off the shelf, I want them to like it. So those are people that I really want to reach early on. And lastly, and this is really important, these people understand my strengths as a writer and my talents as a writer, and they're able to help me use them more completely and also point out when I'm not. So I feel like this is really important to emphasize that when you're looking for early readers, or at least when I'm looking for early readers, I'm not just picking yes people. I'm not picking people who are going to say, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. Like, this is so great. They do say those things to some capacity. They are encouraging, and I do think that's important. You want people to be encouraging so that you know that they're on your side. But these are people who know what I can do, and if I'm not doing it, they're going to hold me accountable to that. And I will give you 2 examples of, like, not picking yes people. I have one early reader who, this just happened like this year. I had given my critique partners a book to review, and they read it, and it wasn't the whole book, it was like a few chapters. And I was asking for feedback a little bit further in the book, but my one critique partner came back to the beginning, the first chapter, and she's like, there's too much exposition here. Like, your strength as a writer is that your dialogue, and especially in the beginning of a book, you get us right into the action. Like, you are really good at that. You are not doing it here. So that's somebody who knows what I can do and was seeing that I wasn't executing. And that was really helpful to me, and I ended up rewriting the beginning of the book, and I'm really glad I did. Another example of someone who's not a yes person, I was struggling with the end of a book. And I remember I was on the phone with one of my critique partners. It wasn't planned critique session. It was just we were going to talk. And I had just finished writing something, and I was like, hey, I don't like how this ending is landing. Can I just read it to you? And of course she said yes. So I read it. And we get to the end, and she goes, oh. Like, oh yes, I see how this is not good. And then she was able to, in her case, she wasn't able to tell me what wasn't working, but she said, this is the part I liked. Like, this was the part that I feel like I was into it with that point. And I ended up just taking the part she liked, and that ended up being the ending. So again, like, these are people who can find your strengths and highlight them, but also hold you accountable to executing them. The other thing I found really helpful is I do a little bit of, like, what I call a tiered feedback approach. So for early readers, I don't give my book to all of my early readers at once. And there's several reasons for this. One, I did that with my first book. I was excited, I finished it, I wanted everybody I cared about and thought I could trust to read it. I printed copies out, I gave it to everybody. They all gave me feedback, which was wonderful. But one of the biggest issues with that I realized is, one, even when it comes to getting feedback, the people giving feedback are going to have different feedback strengths. So when I did that, where I gave everybody the same, the book at the same time, my one critique partner was very into the developmental stuff. So she's like, you know, you've got to rewrite this chapter, you've got to do all of this stuff, like, this isn't working. And then another person who was giving me feedback was into like the nitty-gritty details in the grammar and the sentence structure, that kind of stuff. Both of those things are helpful, but to get them at the same time, it's not, because if I'm getting developmental edits from one partner, those need to come first. It made the feedback I was getting from my other partner, from my other early reader, not useful, because I ended up having to rewrite the sentences that she was just kind of seeing like smaller flaws with. So what I've started doing now is, like, I have early readers that come in at different stages. And this was the other thing too with that, was when I gave everybody the book at once, there was no fresh eyes to get the book later on. There was no one who could tell me if I effectively fixed something, because they weren't exposed to it for the first time again. You know, you only get that first reader once, and getting that feedback I think is really important. So now I give my books to people at different stages. So in the early process, there's my critique group. Like, that's my inner circle, like my inner circle. Everybody who's reading my book early is an inner circle person to me. But the inner circle is my critique group. They read every draft. They are, especially the developmental stuff, like, they are on the ground doing that kind of work. And then I slowly start to expand it. So as I write a new draft, I need new feedback. I need someone who hasn't read it before. I go to a different person. And then all the way down to that original person who was giving me feedback on like the grammar and that stuff. She is still somebody who gives me those notes, and she is the last person who gets it. And at this point, she is a professional writer, so it is a lot like kind of going rounds with an editor with her, which I really appreciate. All right, this is really important, and this is something that I definitely feel like has helped me both in writing and in life, is ask for the feedback you need. When I go to my critique group, I say, I need help with this chapter. I want to know about this topic. Or I want to focus on this area. I want to know if this is working. I want to know if this is not. Like, go into it with asking for what you need. And sometimes I won't say anything, but because I do just want to get their raw opinion. But even when that happens, I'm going in with a goal. With these early readers in particular, you are the one that this is where like you have the most control. You get to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is the feedback I need. I need it from this chapter. I need it from this page. I felt like this wasn't working. I rewrote this. Like, whatever it is, ask for what you need. And if you need the developmental edits, just ask for that. Say, please don't pay attention to the sentence structure and the grammar. I just need to know if this, like, the story, like, developmentally is working. Or, I'm really happy with it developmentally. Let's get into the sentence structure. Let's get into the grammar. Let's get into the more nitpicky stuff and really start to polish this up. Always ask for what you need, because that's what's going to give you the most valuable feedback. And even with that said, you still don't have to take every piece of feedback. At the end of the day, I feel like, if anything, this is my guiding principle when I'm evaluating feedback. Is this information getting me closer to the book I want to write? Like, that idea, when I sat down to write this book, I had a concept, I had an idea in my head. Is this feedback getting me closer to that idea? Or is it getting me further away? So now, phase 2 is getting feedback from agents and editors. Now, I'm going to start this out by saying that the guiding principle I just said, as far as I'm concerned, that still holds. At the end of the day, it's your name on the cover. You have to like what you are putting out there. If someone's feedback, even if it is an agent or an editor, if their feedback is not getting you closer to the book you want to be writing, it's not feedback that you need to take. Now, this can be dicier. You may have to fight a little bit more at this stage. Especially, first of all, if it's an agent that's giving you this feedback and they don't currently represent you, that's where, again, you don't have to take that feedback. I definitely think weigh it, because they've seen a lot of books, they know what works. But still, if they're trying to make your book something other than what you want it to be, it's not feedback you have to take. That's not actually helpful to you. And they would not be an agent that's a good fit for you. Now, once they've represented you, there probably is going to need to be a little bit more collaboration to come to an agreement on what would work. But typically, if the agent is representing you, they should already like your style, like your writing. This shouldn't be a big fight. It should be a collaboration, but not a fight. Now, when it comes to an editor, there's a few different approaches that you can take there. Typically, it's going to depend on your editor's style. And because of that, it kind of leads me to my next point. Know what kind of style you respond to. And this might be something to explore. Honestly, I don't know how to suggest you explore this until you're in it. I didn't learn this lesson until I had an editor. And I was really grateful that we ended up with a style that was really compatible. Her style really worked well for me, which was to say that she did not tell me what I needed to do. I was never dictated, like I have to do this or like for the book or it wouldn't be published or anything like that. It was very much a collaboration, and I respond very, very well to that style. And what I mean by this is her editorial approach was not to give me a list of things I needed to do specifically for this book. It was to ask a lot of questions, to point out problems and things that weren't working, and to offer suggestions and to be a sounding board. But beyond that, I got to come up with the solutions for the problems that she was suggesting. And honestly, she had responded really well to my book. She connected with it well. So I didn't feel like I had to fight against anything. However, I don't think I would ever be okay with letting a book go out into the world that I was not 100% behind. Like, I just don't think I would be okay with that. I don't know how to be okay with that. So I do think it's a situation where I probably would push back pretty hard. I don't know what the outcome of that situation would be, but I do believe in that case in fighting for your book, because to me, again, it goes back to that guiding principle. Is the feedback getting you closer to your vision of the book? So my goal, and this is the biggest thing I think I will say, is before the book's published, you want to get this book to be as good as it possibly can be so that you are actually happy and proud with what you are putting out there. You have to know that at this point in time, for you in this version of yourself as a writer, that is the best you could do, and that book is either at your vision or pretty damn close. And it's really, really important that before that you let that go through to publication, that you feel that way. At least that's what I believe. And here's why. Now we're going to move on to how to take feedback after your book has been published. And this is where I start to feel like the advice that I'm about to give has also been really applicable to me in real life too. All right, so my first advice, so at this point we're talking about like your book is out in the world. Now everyone's got feedback for you, right? So it's time to really sift through that. And what I tend to go back to in this is I take in the good and I discard the bad. And here's why. The good is people who have connected with your book. This is people who have connected with your story. These are people who are likely your ideal reader. Like back when you were picking early readers and you were picking people who like what you like, who like the type of book you were trying to create, who are into that genre, into that those tropes, like whatever it is that you were writing, you picked people who are your ideal reader. The people who are connecting to your book after are your ideal reader, and I believe in celebrating that. I believe in nurturing that connection. I think that's really important, and I think it's really valuable to you. I feel like, to me, that's why I'm publishing. Like, I don't need to be read, to be perfectly honest. I am fine just to write. Like, at my core, I am a writer. If no one ever wanted to publish me again, I would be fine with that. But I do feel like I have stories that people will enjoy, and I feel like I have stories that people will find valuable. And because of that, I do want to publish them. I do want to share them. So when somebody does find that value, that's a connection that we have. And I think nurturing that is really powerful, and that is why I say always read the good stuff. However, I think it is perfectly fine to discard the bad stuff. And I've heard people say, you know, oh, you have to take the good with the bad, or if you're gonna read the good stuff, you have to read the bad stuff too. And I just flat out do not think that is true. I don't think you have to read the bad stuff. I don't think you have to accept bad stuff that people post on your social media or whatever. Because ultimately, if that person does not like your book, then they're probably not your reader. I mean, it could be that they were your reader, but it's much more likely that they are not. It's much more likely that they wanted your book to be something different than what it is. And that's why if we go back to the last step where you are making sure that you love the book you are publishing, that you are proud of what you're putting out there, if you are proud of what you're putting out there, the fact that someone else doesn't like it and it wasn't what they wanted it to be doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're just not your reader. and that's okay. So that is feedback you can set aside, especially because to me, if I don't know you personally, I don't know where you're coming from when you're offering that advice or feedback that you may be giving. So to me, I don't know if I can trust that advice. I don't know if you're actually going to lead me closer to my goals or not. And again, this is something that is true in writing, but it's also true in life. If you are giving me advice and I don't know who you are or where you're coming from, I don't have a reason to trust the advice you're giving me. So because of that, I am setting it aside and I am not taking it on. I'm not doing anything with it. That feedback is not useful. Now, review sites. So I'm talking about the Amazon reviews, Goodreads, and there's a whole bunch of others that I probably should have written down before I sat down to film this, but I didn't. But those, any type of review sites, to me, I stay away from those. I don't think review spaces are actually for writers or authors. They're for readers. So there isn't much of value there. If someone likes my book enough, they're probably going to tell me. They will leave a comment on my social media. People who want to tell you how they feel about your work will come to you. And from there, we talked about how to filter that. You keep the good, you set aside the bad. But when it comes to review sites, those spaces to me are not for writers. They are for readers. And because of that, there's not a lot of useful information for you as a writer, in my opinion. If you like a book, you should absolutely leave a review. It's incredibly helpful to the writer. It helps the book get found. It's a whole algorithm thing. Leave a review, please. But know that if you leave a review there, I'm probably not gonna read it. Because again, I feel like these are spaces for readers. It's for readers to find books that are a good match for them, which benefits everyone. So review spaces are valuable. I just don't think they're for me as a writer. So the bottom line in all of this is yes, you need to be open to feedback. You need to know how to take feedback, but you also need to be discerning about the feedback you take in. You don't have to take every piece of feedback that's presented to you. Focus on staying true to the vision of the book you want to create, or quite frankly, the life you want to create. And do not take any feedback that will not bring you closer to that goal. And that's all I've got for you today. I hope this has helped you evaluate feedback. I hope this has given you something to think about so that you can really find the feedback that's useful to you and valuable to you and helps bring you closer to the books that you want to create and write and bring into the world. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you in the next one.